All right, thank you very much for staying right here with us on this lovely show this morning. This is Sports Central in case you're coming close to your TV set. And my name is Raj James, joined by Blyden. Blyden, it's a very fine morning to have you return here. How's the weekend?
Fine, fabulous. So good to be here.
I'm glad you found the showpiece.
Not the usual question anyway.
All right.
It's been simply nice for me. The weekend was good. Had some rest.
All right, that's great. Very important. Now let's get straight to the action and talk about the tennis event, Indian Wells crescendo of the weekend, starting with the WTA. Mari Sakkari took an Iga Swiatek, seeded third and seeded sixth and third respectively, heading into the finals, and it was a third seed from Poland who won her 11th straight game, and she's now made it back-to-back ATP Masters 1000 events, following her first capture for the year in Doha. And the catch is that the extra incentive, she's set to rise to world number 2 in the rankings, WTA rankings, to release later today. What a weekend and what a fortnight it's been for the Polish lady.
It's been exceptional for Iga Swiatek. We've talked about Iga Swiatek, and when we talk about her this year, there's no other tennis player in the female category that's performed at the level Iga Swiatek has performed. Exceptional tennis player. Went through the season winning 11 consecutive wins and 20, the most by any tennis player in the female category. It went on to show the form, it went on to show the excitement, it went on to show the tenacity, it went on to show everything you could think of. And I like the fact that she'll become world number 2. By today, she'll be world number 2. Exceptional game of tennis so far from Iga Swiatek. She's been the girl in form. I was listening to her after the tournament, and she said it's exciting. If someone had told her that she would be a back-to-back winner after winning in 1,000 events at Doha, and now at Indian Wells she's doing greatly and she's won it, that she wouldn't believe it. But she loved the hard work she's put into it. She also loved the fact that she'll be world number 2. Who wouldn't like it? And you only have Ashley Barty up there better than her. And who knows, the psychology about it will be the fact that in the few years to come, you never can tell with this level of form. After winning at Doha, she brought the same level of premise, the same level of energy, the same level of intensity into Indian Wells. And now she'll be world number 2. And most likely, I think the next dream will be how to become world number 1.
Now before we talk about world number 1, let's talk about what it means for her being from Poland. She is the first Polish woman to win at Indian Wells. The closest Polish player to reach this stage was, at Agnieszka Radwanska back in 2014. She was the runner-up. And now she's also set to become the first player since Agnieszka Radwanska to climb to world number 2 in the WTA rankings right here. You look at a winning streak this year, 20 match wins for her, not even Ashley Barty can match that. If she continues here, clearly should be an unstoppable force beyond the tours. We're talking, what will it mean for her? Let me put a direct question now. If she takes this form to the Grand Slams proper.
That's what I'm expecting. I'm expecting her to take this level of form to the Grand Slam, because one thing happens in sports. We always talk about building momentum. Just as I was listening to her, the Doha win that came earlier on was that momentum for her. And we saw her transcended into the Indian Wells. And now everyone would be looking forward to the name Iga Swiatek being world number 2 and potentially moving to the Grand Slam. Watch her at the Australian Open. Was a little here, a little there. But it's time, because when you bet the likes of Maria Sakkari and you look at it and you think to yourself, probably, I'm going to go to the biggest stage. I'm world number 2 now. It sends something to you. It tells you you're such a big player. It's time to show that class, that work you've been putting in. Go to the court and play like a world number 2 with full of confidence. Bring out the confidence. Attack when you need to attack and get the necessary result. I'll be looking forward to what Iga Swiatek will bring at the Grand Slam, because at this point, it's just obvious. She's the in player in the world right now. She's the player in form. And what use is form when you're not getting it to win at the Grand Slams?
Right now, she's also improved her record at ATP Masters 1000 events to 11 love. If you're not a tennis fan, that definitely means 11 massive wins and no single loss for her undefeated. Let's see how consistent she would be now rising to world number 2, and of course how far that propels her. But before we leave Iga Swiatek, you know, very finally now she's risen to world number 2. The last time we saw her rise into cracking to the top 5 was back when she won you know, the French Open. We're talking Roland Garros in 2019. She's just 20. I mean, it's all of these achievements and successes. Psychologically, you think she can handle the pressure of being just the second-ranked WTA player in the world?
Well, she's been handling the pressure all this time. Right, James? She won a Grand Slam. Good player, quality. She's not playing like a 20-year-old for me. She's playing like someone who's mature enough, who can handle all the pressure. And she's been handling it. Won 2 titles this year. Exceptional tennis player. For me, it's not just about the pressure. It's about what she's doing for the Polish young girls right now, because a lot of young girls are looking forward to Iga Swiatek. They want to be like Iga Swiatek, those who had a dream to go into tennis. She's an inspiration for them. And all she has to do is keep doing her bit, keep performing at the highest level. Who knows, in a year to come or thereabouts, she might become a world number 1 if she's consistent at this performance. So far, I'm excited for what she's bringing up, and I'm really looking forward to what the Iga Swiatek we've seen, the Polish girl who's inspiring many young girls in Poland, what she'll do moving into the Grand Slams and moving forward in tennis.
Yeah, this time last year, you know, she was 16,800 places a point away from the number 2 spot, but look at the work and the consistency she's put in to close that gap. We're talking about a year later, the Polish lady would rise to number 2 in the WTA rankings. Well, this is just the beginning. She's 20. You can tell if she keeps her head on her shoulder, she's destined for greatness. Now, let's leave the WTA very quickly and talk about the ATP Indian Wells from the ATP, also crescendo of the weekend. And what a story. The typical American dream, it had to be about Taylor Fritz, seated at number 20 in this particular tourney, upended the old guard and, of course, disrupted the natural setting in tennis, going by what was put in place before at the start of this particular tournament. It was a clash between Rafael Nadal and Taylor Fritz, and very quickly, you know, if you follow the events this particular year in the build up to the Roland Garros and at Roland Garros and beyond that in Acapulco and the rest, you'd almost certainly give it to Rafa Nadal. But how dare you, Taylor Fritz, come from nothing to disrupt the natural setting? Well, this is the kind of stories we live for, Blyden. The American dream played out. Taylor Fritz, absolutely not given any chance, but came out the usual, not the usual Taylor Fritz we know. Came out all aggressive, and I can't remember the last time I saw a player, you know, attack Rafa Nadal the way, but he looked like a man on a mission, and he knew what his tactics was from the word go. Attacked Rafa Nadal, and that got him the result.
The beauty about Taylor Fritz, Brad James, has been the fact that at the semi-finals he faced Andy Rublev and had a twist of ankle, and during the warm-up to this particular game, the finals against Rafael Nadal, there was some sort of recurrence. Most of the coaches, about 3 of them, told him not to take part in that finals. But he said, I'm going to go into it. It seemed like a wounded lion, a man who had nothing to lose for me in that particular game. He went all out, did the best he can. The only thing on Taylor Fritz's mind was, let me see how I can make the country proud. For a long time, we've not seen an American win in Indian Wells since Agassi. I think that was 2001.
Yeah.
It's been a long, long time. And when we've talked about the Americans, the American dream, and you have all these Americans participating in tennis and not being able to play the best of tennis. But he just showed the world that Fritz could do it. American men are able to do it in tennis, winning the 1,000 events, ATP Tour events. Exceptional tennis for me on the night. I looked at it and I was wondering how he's able to do this, considering the conditions he faced and how he came into this one. He attacked Rafael Nadal, not giving Rafael Nadal breathing space. And Rafael Nadal throughout the game was doing catch-up. Fantastic tennis. Taylor Fritz, you look at him, not in the top 10 in the world, but probably around 20th in the world, but played the best of tennis on the night. This is what sports is all about, right? This is what sports bring, and it was exciting the way it turned out for me.
No, you see, what certainly has beginning has an end. 20 games, unbeaten run ended in the hands of their 20th seed. We're talking about Taylor Fritz. It's quite the story.
And
now,
he's a tailor. He tailored it well.
Yeah, absolutely. And now let's talk about Rafael Nadal and what this means now for him going forward. He's now been beaten, so he's tasted defeat. How does he react to that particular defeat by the American Taylor Fritz?
Well, Rafael is a big man. Nadal is a big man. He's gone through this before many times. This is his best record at the beginning of the year. But I think on the other hand, the concern for Rafael would be because it seemed to set a template. What Taylor's done seemed to set a template right now. If I'm a tennis player, when next I play Rafael Nadal, I looked at it from a standpoint of Taylor Fritz. I have to attack him. Don't give him breathing space. For crying out loud, the man is 35. Come on in him as much as you can. And that's what we saw. So for me, from a Rafael Nadal perspective would be, how do I react in similar situation? I saw the game against Carlos Alcaraz in the semi-finals, where Alcaraz came on him, but he stood his ground and won it. But Taylor really pounded on him in a way he's not experienced before. It was
now let's talk about that particular clash. It was a clash that took well over 3 hours. It was quite a thriller. Energy sapping, very intense, grueling game as it was. You think, had that had any part to play, in what we saw in the final? We saw some tired legs, Rafael Nadal, usually the very energetic player, but we didn't see that energy burst through. It was very quiet on the baseline, not the usual movement and all of that. It looked like, he suffered some fatigue and all that. And we talked about it all through the tournament, having to drag games beyond 2 hours, 3 hours, and what it would eventually mean for him. Is that what cost him this title?
I think beyond that, Brad James, because it's easy to put the blame on or make an excuse in terms of fatigue. It's a tournament. Rafael Nadal has gone through this so many times. But I knew that somewhere, somehow, Rafael will get to a point where he gets to lose games. Why do I say so? Look at the numbers. Virtually everyone Rafael Nadal played against in this Indian world, he wasn't just an easy straight set, sometimes 3 sets. And you look at the score difference, it had to be 7-6, 6-7 and all that. Quite close. He just seemed to crunch out those results all through. And there was going to be a point where you're not able to do that, especially playing against these younger folks that are quite spirited. It was going to get to that point for me. And that was a point for me against Fritz.
Right. Beyond being the first American since Andre Agassi to win in Indian Wells since 2001, is also the youngest player at 24 since Novak Djokovic to win Indian Wells in 2014. Well, the American dream continued beyond the veneer of these singles, while John Isner, of course, Jack Sockfeld as single players. They teamed up. And of course, in the doubles event, did just enough to open the old guard, the defending champions, to win in the doubles event. It's crescendo. We're looking forward to more spectacle. We now have to turn our attentions expeditedly to the ATP Masters 1000 next event, which comes up in Miami. But it's a wrap on tennis, this particular one. Let's leave there very quickly and head to the speed lanes of Formula One. And now where the story from there was the Bahrain Grand Prix starting. And of course, signaling the new era in Formula One. And of course, had to be Charles Leclerc and had to be Team Ferrari. Well, we saw it, from the second in Catalonia, the pre-testing in Bahrain. The qualifiers, we're talking about Q1, Q2, Q3, the race for pole position and the race proper. Was that surprising for you, Blyden? Charles Leclerc and Team Ferrari absolutely dominating. At some point, we saw wheel-to-wheel action between, both drivers, talking Leclerc for Ferrari, and of course, Red Bull's Max Verstappen. But Scott, beside how it ended for Red Bull.
It wasn't totally surprising for me, Brad James. When you look at Ferrari, 2017, Ferrari known for getting faster cars of some sort. They brought in the hybrid car, which brought some issues with them with the FI, 2017, 2018. So by 2020, we saw the level of cars they brought in. It wasn't the high-performing car because of the difficulties in the situation surrounding those controversies at the time. But by the time the rules had changed, FIA has brought in these rules, helping other franchise and those companies to be able to bring in cars that are quite fast, brought in changes and systems that really work out, the nature of the tires, the airflow systems and all that. It became better. You knew that definitely Ferrari would be the car that is in for it for the championship. I look at the qualifiers that are put on. I thought it was going to be probably slow and steady, and the likes of Mercedes and Red Bull would be the mainstay in this one. But I'm excited that it's changing, Brad James. I'm really excited that it's changing. I'm excited that we're having new teams come up and performing quite well and making it difficult for the race. Right now, Ferrari seems to be like the fastest car for me, because you look at 5 times they're going toe-to-toe against Verstappen's Red Bull, overlapping and overtaking. It happened repeatedly till Red Bull couldn't sustain it, and sadly for the Red Bull side, they had to go through a difficulty of lack of supply of fuel by the cars, which they had to stop. Difficult it is, but somewhere, somehow, I think the team that be of most concern would be Mercedes, because Mercedes right now, they're nicking into the 3rd position in this one, but they have to look back. What can we do to improve in these races, and what can we do to improve the nature of the cars?
Why are you talking about Team Mercedes? I'm surprised, you've basically given the Red Bull a pat on the back. 2 of their drivers couldn't finish the race in Max Verstappen and Carlos Sainz, and of course we're looking forward to having a potential 2-3 for the Red Bull team, but non-finished owing to reliability issues. Mercedes with a slower car, very slightly, and of course very evidently from pre-testing in Barcelona and in Bahrain, and Q1, Q2, Q3, and the race for pole position. But the stolen, Lewis Hamilton earning a podium finish at 3rd, and of course the new driver, talking George Russell, finishing in 4th. Red Bull have got a faster car. It should be up there competing with the likes of Ferrari and McLaren, but they're not at the moment, and that's got to be frustrating.
They will moving forward. In the long run, they will.
What's the guarantee?
One thing is certain. It's just a malfunction that happened. I know that they can correct that. They can correct that moving forward. Going to the next races, they can correct that. But one thing is certain, they have a fast car. This year having the high rate cars, and they're moving quite fast. The biggest problem would now be Mercedes. That's why I talked about Mercedes, because they have to look at it. What do we tweak? What changes do we make? Do we go to the Ray system and see how we can make this adjustment such that the car could move faster? That's a big concern for Mercedes. Remember last year.
Do they need a faster car to compete to the likes of Ferrari and McLaren?
You don't think they need it?
I'm asking.
I think they need it. They need not just a faster car. Probably see how to make the car move faster, not in terms of engine components and all that. It could be the rear view system. Make an adjustment in those areas and see how I can get a quicker car, especially make it a bit like a push and run, the way we have with the Red Bull's cars.
Yeah, but before the new system, that has basically leveled the playing field for all of the teams competing, so they have an equal chance of making it. Ferrari, McLaren, Red Bull, they're very famous for owning faster cars, but even in the era where Red Bull, McLaren, Ferrari have owned faster cars, Mercedes, very slow and steady, they've gotten and dominated the Formula One. Why do they need faster cars now?
This is why. Because the new rules brought these changes, so the competitors are more. Before, it seemed like Mercedes against Red Bull, Mercedes against McLaren, Mercedes against one particular franchise. But now the numbers are increasing. You're having McLaren, you're having, name them, even the Haas teams are coming up, all these teams are coming up. But the concern now would be, you're not competing with one franchise, you're competing with many who are doing quite well. So while your system has always been that of stability, because faster cars also have their own problems. The tires get busted because of temperature issues while you're moving too fast. And all these systems can be problematic. But you have to find a way to add up a little bit of speed so that you don't end up doing catch-up throughout the season.
All right, now it's just race 1, and of course we've got a lot more stops in the course of the Formula 1 season. Well, as it stands, the likes of Ferrari, McLaren, and of course, we're talking the Red Bull team seem to be on top in terms of the time sheets. But of course, a lot can still change. You roll out Mercedes and Lewis Hamilton, who's chasing a record extending 8 world title, well, you do that at your own peril. But we'll quickly leave the Spillers of Formula 1 and head off to the NBA, where Benz came up clutch for the Memphis Grizzlies in the NBA. They had no Ja Morant, but they had no issues. Seeing off the Houston Rockets was, some massive scoreline there. And, Blind, we've always talked about the reliance on one player, and it looks like the Grizzlies are preparing themselves for the postseason party with or without Ja Morant.
It's necessary, but James, the way it's turning out is necessary. You have to find a way to get these results, whether your star man is around or not. And that's what we saw the Grizzlies do. They got the best they could, playing well, and the likes of Desmond Bain, he's turning out in 2 consecutive matches now, being that leader and doing quite well for the Memphis Grizzlies. Exceptional basketball for me, and when you have such a big brand, such a big name like Moran not being around, you have to just find a way and get those wins. And at this point, it's a critical point of the season. A few games to go, barely 11 or thereabout, or 12 or 10 thereabout, depending on how many games your franchise has played. So you have to realize that it's the situation right now. And that's what we're seeing. The Memphis Grizzlies are doing their bit. In this particular match, Brad James, about 5 other players hit an average of 13 points. The numbers weren't that big for them, but they did their bit to get the result for me.
Right, now that's Ja Morant's right there for you. Was a 122-98 victory in favor of the Memphis Grizzlies. And now let's quickly leave the Memphis Grizzlies and talk about the Spurs beating a Coreless Golden State Warriors. It was a very close margin, 110 to 108. And at the end of that one, the head coach, Steph Curry, had a lot to complain about officiating and all. It's not a usual phenomenon with the Golden State Warriors, and particularly for a man like Steph Curry, but it looks like the pressure is mounting and it's beginning to feel the heat, and things like this are beginning to count.
They're just lucky that they're still in a good position for me, because with the level of form they've shown, it's been terrible. If they didn't start the season well, they would have been in a dire situation moving to the playoff. But they still have time to recover one way or the other. But it's difficult for me. It's difficult, very, very difficult, because right now it's not working out for them, especially when you don't have Steph Curry being part of the mix. It's been very difficult. We really hope that Steph comes back and comes back strong during the playoff. Right now he's out, and we don't know how many games they're going to lose.
Right now, beyond the veneer, and of course, the talk about Steph Curry, and a big team like Golden State Warriors complaining about officiating, and attributing that to their loss. Technically, was there something to complain, or did they have a case, with the officiating in this particular game?
I think they wouldn't have to look at this game alone, but look at what they've done the last 10 games, the last 7 games, how they've performed. For me, it's not been different. I think they're beginning to go back to that situation where you see the Golden State Warriors get close, but not getting the result. We're beginning to see that it was the same situation on the night for me. It was the same situation on the night for me. Not playing quite well this season, especially from mid-season downwards. One could only hope the Golden State Warriors get to improve and play better than they do, because you can't bring up this level of form to the playoff. It's going to be disastrous for them.
It's the postseason party. Meanwhile, that's how it ended. 110-108 in favor of the San Antonio Spurs. Richardson had 25 points and 2 rebounds for the Spurs. Jordan Poole led the Golden State Warriors with 28 massive points and 5 rebounds. It's got to be about that balance we always talk about, the offensive balance and the defensive balance, because 28 points and 5 rebounds, usually, by a top performer, should win you games like this.
I agree. Not just another thing you have to look at, not just a performance of one player. Yeah. Because you can have one player hit 50 points, and you have your opponent hit about an average of 30 points by 5 players, and they do better than you. For me on the night, that was the case. The Spurs side came out clutch. They came out performing top-notch, had a number of players giving good points for themselves. Not the highest in terms of numbers, but in terms of performances, they got the result.
Right, they got the job done. That's the story from there, and we would say congratulations to the Spurs. But we're here to break here very quickly, and when we return to this, we talk about football stories.